Okay, let's move forward. And after Professor Ein Goldman's session, it was so informative. We learned so much about the program cycle, about the different components, what is relevant, the power dynamics, so many things, so many things, right? So now we have another great presentation, and it's about use of evaluation results for improvement, what makes it useful or useless. And for this presentation, I will invite Professor Aki Yonehara. She is the visiting professor at Indian Institute of Technology and professor of Toyo University, Japan. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and maybe good evening, everybody. Let me share my screen first. Okay, is it visible to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm very excited to think about this important question, how to use the evaluation results for improvement with your here. I think some of you have already studied very hard for the last 2 days. So your shoulder and your neck must be a little bit stiff. So maybe you need to stretch before starting this lecture. Please do stretch and then rounding your neck and then take a deep breath, and to take enough oxygen to your brain, and please get ready to yourself. Let's see. Okay, so now let me start with the conclusion first. What is that if you are, it is actually easy to identify if your evaluation is useful or useless. By asking this question, if your evaluation is contributing to the social betterment, your evaluation is useful. And if not, maybe it's not very much useful. So this is very simple, and then maybe the easiest the method to make sure if this evaluation is useful or not. Maybe I understand the reality is not that simple and we have a lot of things to think, but this is sort of the starting point and baseline that I'm always going back to when I have to make a difficult judgment. And before jumping into the body of my lecture, I would like to share my experience from my home country, Japan. The Ministry of Internal Affairs Japan set the Council for Policy Evaluation. And this Policy Evaluation Council published the recommendation report in 2021, March, just last year. That title was the Shift to Useful Evaluation. And as some of you may know that Japanese society started the National Policy Evaluation System from year 2001. And since year 2007, the policy evaluation became obligation. And we evaluation experts are making a joke when we look at this title of this recommendation report last year. The title said, now it's time to shift to the useful evaluation. After 20 years, we started the policy evaluation at the national level. Does it mean we did something useless evaluation for the over 20 years? Is this title indicate that? Like we are making this kind of black joke among the evaluation experts. But actually, this recommendation report articulates the very interesting sentence. Conventional policy evaluation made evaluation self-objective, not used for improvement, which is ended in the evaluation fatigue. I think this is very much informative sentence, and then this explained everything for our 20 years history. According to this report, the useful evaluation is composed from flexible evaluation and convincing evaluation. Flexible evaluation means if the evaluation is adaptable for the social change. And convincing evaluation means if that evaluation is based on the reliable data and research, maybe in other words, it's the evidence rather than the simple convention or authority. And based on those two factors, the useful evaluation means if that evaluation provides the necessary information that users really want to know. And this report also articulates that the quality evaluation motivates the evaluation officials. I think it's very natural. If what you are doing are not contributing to social betterment, who can be motivated with such work? But if you can recognize that what you're doing is surely contributing to the social betterment, of course you'll be motivated with such work. So the doing quality evaluation is of course important for the social betterment, and also that kind of the evaluation would motivate the evaluation officials as well. Okay, maybe it's enough for the introduction. And this is a list that I want to talk with you and think with you today. I would like to think about the purpose of evaluation, evaluation for what. And after that, I would like to share maybe 3 case studies to think about those questions, like how to use the results, and also what is the factors to make your evaluation results useful or useless. And questions and comments are always welcome to the chat box. And also, I sometimes ask you the quick casual questions here and there during the lecture. So I would appreciate your cooperation to join. Okay, let's start with evaluation for what. According to the Michael Scriven, there is 2 major purposes of evaluation. One is a formative and the other is a summative. And a formative evaluation is mainly focused on the improvement. And then this is more, this kind of evaluation has more internal perspective, and which tries to promote the change. And this kind of evaluation is often conducted through the whole PDCA cycle. As you see this framework, I'm going to explain the framework of program evaluation in a minute, but starting from the plan stage, not just the check stage. Evaluation is often considered to be conducted at the check stage after the implementation, but in many formative evaluation framework, consider that the evaluation starts from the planning stage. And because of this reason, formative evaluation often has more prospective nature. On the other hand, the summative evaluation is often used for the accountability purpose. This kind of evaluation has more external perspective to be more objective. And then this kind of evaluation often used for the impact evaluation or outcome evaluation, and which is often conducted at the C stage of PDCA, so after some kind of intervention. So for this reason, this evaluation has more retrospective nature. And when it comes to, say, accountability, I would like to introduce this mountain of accountability. Okay, according to the Professor Michael Quinn Patton, accountability has 3 layers. The first layer is a basic accountability for management process. And second level is accountability for impact. And the third level is accountability for learning, development, and adaptation. When you hear the term of accountability, which level of accountability you imagine? Maybe we easily imagine accountability, maybe in terms of financial audits or due diligence, maybe routine guarantee reporting. These could be the maybe easy to connect to the concept of accountability. And maybe these days, at least in our society, Japan, more and more evaluation experts started to pay attention to the impact aspect of accountability. Like RCT type stuff is going to be more popular. Although it's not very much often conducted, but it became more and more popular. But I don't know how many of you consider about like deep reflective practice or focusing on the system change, innovation, complexity. These things is also a part of the accountability according to this framework. So if we stop climbing this mountain on the way, it may cause the evaluation fatigue. If we just simply thinking or too much focusing on the basic accountability, like a financial audit, due diligence, routine reporting, these are also the important work, but it's on the way. If we too much focusing on this level, we may tired of evaluation. And actually, this is what we experienced in Japanese society for the last 20 years. And in order to climb up to the accountability for learning, development, and adaptation, in order to realize that deep reflective practice or system change and so on, we need a better understanding of the local context. Without better understanding the local context, it is impossible to realize deep reflection or system change. I'm going to introduce maybe a little bit case study about this point later on. Okay. And on the other hand, the other side of the evaluation purpose is the more formative one. And of course, I'm not arguing which is better, I mean, formative or summative, which is better, not for that. I just wanted to explain that there is a different purpose and that we evaluator needs to know that difference. And then maybe one of the most popular framework for the formative evaluation is a program evaluation theory. If you're interested in, please have a look at the Rossi's textbook. And then program evaluation is composed of 5 levels of evaluation. I think this like needs evaluation, theory evaluation, process evaluation, and efficiency and outcome evaluation. I think this framework is somehow equivalent to the framework that Dr. Candice introduced yesterday, and then Professor Ian introduced just now, like a diagnostic evaluation, design evaluation, implementation evaluation, outcome and impact and economic evaluation, kind of like corresponding to each level, a similar idea, I think. And then I think the important characteristics of the formative evaluation is that this kind of evaluation starts from the planning stage. Like in the needs evaluation, we need to discuss about what is actual needs existing in the reality. And for the theory evaluation, we need to know what is the ultimate, what should be the ultimate goal, and what kind of strategy we should take to reach that goal. And in order to make the needs evaluation, theory evaluation really substantive and meaningful, the local participation is inevitable. Even if it's within the Japanese policy, I am often that external, it's an outsider of the certain community. So I need to know what's really needs the people in the community has, and what is really the local resource, and then also the strategies they really can take in the realistic manner. So this kind of information is only from the local stakeholders. So the communication with the local stakeholders are very, very important. Okay, now let me share some case. The first case is from one of the Western African countries. This is a case of teacher development policy, which I worked for maybe more than 10 years ago. This policy includes a teacher training program in order to develop teachers' knowledge and attitude on those three components: the school maintenance and IT maintenance and school hygiene. And in order to evaluate the impact of this training program, we designed the evaluation in a very simple way, collecting the data from the seminar participant group and also the same from the non-participants group, and then made a group comparison. And there's a hypothesis that the seminar participant group must have more knowledge and a higher attitude than non-participant group after the seminar. And due to the time limitation, I cannot explain the details of this project, and then skipping all the process of data collection and analysis, whatever. And then let me share the results of the analysis here. Regarding the attitude of school maintenance and IT maintenance and school hygiene, these top three lines indicate that the results. And the bottom three lines are about the knowledge of those three factors. And the yellow highlighted part is a statistically significant part, which means school maintenance and IT maintenance in both attitude and knowledge. So their intervention, actually the intervention is positively significant. I mean, there is a statistically significant positive difference after between those two groups. Then the seminar participants group are higher. On the other hand, regarding the school hygiene, there is no statistical significance observed. So this was the result of the analysis. So may I ask you a question, and then please write something in the chat box if possible. Do you think this evaluation is accountable enough? Because we conducted properly the social survey, collecting the data, analyze the data, and statistically, get the results. Do you think this evaluation is accountable enough? And if you are in the member of this evaluation team, what you're going to do next? And how do you use these results? Could you please share your idea? I'll give you 1 minute to think. Of course, there is no right answer. So just casually think about what you're going to do. And do you think this is accountable enough? Okay, thank you. It's not enough. Need to triangulate this statistically significant results and ask what they hygiene related to components. Yes, or that's significant, maybe skills and focus group discussion. Yeah, thank you very much. It's very important. And I wish to, okay. Okay, results are not accountable enough. Yes, and I think we should collect more qualitative data to answer how and why questions. Yes, it's too much scientific and academic. Yes, and if our assumptions and conditions of the statistical tests are met, including sampling adequacy, the results can be considered accountable. I see. Now, is there any local participation? Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I think each comment bringing a very important point. Yes, Actually, in this evaluation team, what we did after getting this result was conduct, as somebody mentioned in the chat box, we conducted focus group interview. We visited the community, and then what we found out from there was that that community was suffering from the hygiene issue for the long time. So that is why the people in the community already had enough high interest and certain knowledge about hygiene. So of course, those teachers in that community has a high attitude and better knowledge about school hygiene. So because we noticed that, we decided to. So that is why the hygiene training program didn't work. Because the non-participants already have a certain level of attitude and knowledge. So that after this evaluation study, we redevelop the training program, particularly the school hygiene part. So this is a very simple example, but this is a kind of reflective practice. And localization and participation is a key to realize a deep reflective practice. We needed to localize, localize that interpretation of that statistical analysis, the results of the statistical analysis. And in order to conduct the deep reflective thinking and for the practice change and then redevelop the program, we needed many advice from the local stakeholders. So that localization and participation are the key factors for this project. And I think that the statistical analysis is very powerful and important and convincing, but this is not the goal of the evaluation. This is a starting line, because in the society, there are so many problems, the issues, and then sometimes it's very difficult for us to prioritize which one we should think about first and which way we should go, move on. So statistical analysis sometimes tell us, which door we should open. Like in this case, because of this analysis, we noticed that, okay, we have to do something to make it better for the school hygiene aspect. So again, the analysis is not the ending line, it's a starting line to make the things better. Okay, so now let me share two more case studies from my home country. To think about what makes the evaluation results more useful or even useless. One case is from the K-City in Japan, and this city conducted active and greenery city policy. And because of this national regulation, the K-City must set the KPI, key performance indicator, for the evaluation purpose. And the K-City government evaluation officials set area of park as KPI. And because this policy was 5 years policy, they had to set the goalpost for the next 5 years. Then they set, okay, the first year 4 square meter per person, and next year 5, and 5, and 5, and 5. Do you feel something weird? As an external evaluator, when I saw this document, I felt, honestly saying, weird. Why do they choose the Elio Park as a KPI and then the goalpost doesn't change? The reality is because they wanted to choose achievable KPI in order to keep their budget for their safety. And also the Elio Park is easy to collect the data. They don't have to conduct the social survey, this is a sort of the administrative data, easy to get. But in the reality, the Key City is located in the urban area next to Tokyo, and then the land place is very extremely high. So it's almost impossible to get the additional space to expand the park. And also the expanding park, I don't know if how much the meaning of that has that. And the more serious contradiction is hidden in this KPI. As you might know, our society is seriously suffering from the population decrease, particularly the child decrease, and our society is rapidly aging. But if you look at this KPI, this is divided by person. So if the Key City population decrease, this KPI actually increase. But this policy goal is to activate the city. But this KPI indicates that a population decrease resulted in the KPI increase. So there is a very substantive contradiction is hidden in this KPI setting. So let me give you, please give me your idea. What kind of indicator should be used for this evaluation? If you are the evaluation officials at the Key City government, what kind of indicator shall you use for this policy, active and cleanly city policy? Could you give me any idea? Any other better possible indicator? Yes. Prevalence of lung disease, air pollution indicator. Oh yes, that's way better than the ADO part. Yes. Beneficiary population, air quality, yes. People citizen benefit on the active and cleanly city policy. Oh yes. Yeah, trees planted, yes. Maybe temperature as well. Yes, that's also good indicator to measure the environmental condition, right? Waste management. Yes, that's also the good point. Yeah, thank you very much. I think the more and more idea comes up. So I believe there must be much more better KPI than area park. And I believe the Key City evaluation officials may know that, but maybe they consider too much about the due diligence and routine guarantee reporting. So that is why they wanted to set the achievable and safe KPI. So that, in other words, the Key City government officials stop climbing this mountain of accountability and on the way, and they didn't think about the impact and social change adaptation aspect. So I think we need to remember, we do evaluation not for the self-objective, but for hopefully the accountability for learning, development, and adaptation. Okay, the last example that I want to share with you is from the case Key City in Japan again. They conducted the policy, a public policy entitled Community-Based Disaster Prevention Policy. And then they decided to take a framework of program evaluation. So according to this program evaluation, 5 stages, they started the needs assessment, needs evaluation. The city government evaluation officials conducted a discussion with local people in the community in order to understand the diversity of the local needs. And then based on this needs analysis, they created the logic model with local stakeholders. This is just like some of you learned from the Dr. Soma in the first day of this 3 days, the theory of change, starting with the theory of change, and then develop the logic model. And then they spent a lot of time to think about what is the goal should be like. And then after a lot of discussion, they agreed with their goal, like improvement of local resilience. But next question was that, so how should we measure the local resilience to evaluate? Then they spent another long time to develop their own KPI indicator. Then again, they agreed with, it's good to have BGM sometime. Yeah, and then they agreed with the one indicator, the sense of security of the vulnerable people. Because T-City is very different from the K-City in the former example. They are located in a very remote area, and then their community is very much aged. There are so many elderly people living in the community. So that they can, and then because of their age, they are always afraid if disaster happened, who could help us? So that they agreed with this sense of security of the vulnerable people is an appropriate indicator in their community. And because the sense of security is a human subjective feeling, so that they needed to conduct a survey, then collect the data and analyze the data. And in those analysis, I mean, result of the analysis was shared, and also that is reported. And those reports became available for the local people. And then the city government had another workshop with the local residents to share this report, and also receiving the feedback from them. And those feedbacks are utilized for the policy improvement for the next year. And regarding the efficiency, the city government consider that the efficiency does not always mean time and finance. It can mean the substantive improvement of the community. So those processes are basically conducted as a participatory evaluation. So at every aspect, the city government set the opportunity of workshop and invited the local stakeholders. And then because the process was conducted participatory, that process itself functioned as an evaluation capacity building, not only for the city officials, but also the local stakeholders. They started to develop their own evaluative thinking. So after listening this quick story, obviously I introduced this case as one of the successful case. What do you think the most important factor, to make this case successful? Could you share your idea through the chat box? What do you think is a successful factor of this case? Yes, understanding the local needs. Yes, the starting line is very important. And community participation. Yes. Sometimes it takes time and then some cost to get involved the community people, but yes, community participation and key stakeholders engagement, ownership by community. Yes, that's right. Actually, the ownership is dramatically increased over time. Stakeholder involvement from the beginning, yes, from the planning stage, and sharing the findings, yes, and feedback from the local community. Yes, the government sincerely received the feedback, including the negative feedback as well. and the willingness to create space for people participation in policy. Yes, that's also important. Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much sharing your ideas. Again, there is no right answer. And I think what you mentioned in the chat box are all very important. And from my observation, I think it's almost the same thing some of you already said in the chat box, that the evaluative communication was a very important key factor of this case. Evaluative communication is my naming, but it is a kind of the communication that the outcome-oriented and adaptable, flexible communication based on evidence, not based on the authority or convention. Okay, so through those 3 case studies, and then let me summarize today's short talk. First of all, I introduced the purpose of evaluation that can be formative or summative. And then formative evaluation is for improvement and more prospective, and that is often conducted through a whole PDCA process. And I quickly introduced the program evaluation framework. And for the summative purpose, summative evaluation is often used for the accountability purpose and has more retrospective nature, and which is often conducted at the C stage of PDCA. And I introduced a mountain of accountability, which includes not only the basic level, but also the impact and the third level. And we indirectly discussed through the chat box what is the factors to make the evaluation results more useful. In 3 examples from my experience, I pointed out the participation in localization, deep reflective practice, and evaluation capacity building. But as you share in the chat box, there are many more factors existing according to the case. So I think we as an evaluator would like to keep the mindset to always look for what is the factor to make this evaluation result more useful for the social betterment. I think keeping this mindset is very, very important. And now getting back to the conclusion statement that I already introduced at the beginning. Evaluation is not for the self-objection or evaluation fatigue. That's always for the social betterment. Okay, thank you very much for taking your time and sharing your ideas. As time allows, I would like to have time for the question and answer. Thank you. Okay, if anybody would like to speak out, please mic unmute. You're very welcome.
Professor, we have some questions in the chat box, and also
yes.
Dr. Sanjeev has his hand raised. Maybe Dr. Sanjeev, you can begin.
Yeah, no,
yes.
just to get the ball rolling. You can answer the question in the chat, but Aki, I want to get your sense of, you work quite a bit in the US, you worked in Japan, you are working in India. Give me a sense, and it's a slightly poorly posed question because you're a reasonable newcomer to India. That's not the case in your own relationship with Japan. Give me a sense of just in these different settings and contexts. I mean, the whole idea of utility is relationship based, and give me a sense of how do you navigate across these different. I have a similar predicament because I tend to be in different parts of the world, and you really realize at the end the secret is relationship building. And at the end, doesn't matter whether you're in Japan or India, you still have to spend the time to say hello and make friends. And actually, they have to feel comfortable with you. So give me a sense of how do you navigate the sort of relationship fields, especially as your roles are somewhat different across the different cultures. You don't have to answer right now, but I was keen to get the ball rolling. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for asking that. Yes, well, if I'm answering in one sentence, I think the listening is very important. I think the listen to the people is one of the most important the characteristics of a good evaluator. I'm not sure if I'm doing well or not, but like even in the same situation, like a community development, when I conducting the project community development in the very rural area in the northern Thailand, is very different from doing the same thing in Japan or in Turkey or in Senegal. So evaluator, I think the evaluation is, the flexibility and adaptation of the evaluation is very important. And in the same manner, the evaluator itself needs to be very adaptable and flexible. And then in a more technical sense, I usually conducting the value statement survey, like value-based survey beforehand when we start the project, evaluation project, and in order to understand what is really the value of the people in that community, even if that value survey or interview, or just, sometimes if I couldn't have time and money to conduct this kind of formal survey, I spent some time to have coffee or just chat to spend some time with key informants in the community and to understand what kind of value they have. Like when I conducted one evaluation project for 4 years in Thailand, there are different states in Thailand. And then the values that the goal that the Bangkok government assumed was totally different from that in each different states. So even within one country, there is such a difference. So sorry, my talk is a little bit scattered, but the point is spend time to talk people in the community and to understand what is their value in a larger sense. I'm not sure if I'm answering to your question, but yeah.
You did. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Oh, and I see another hands. Dr. Jefter, could you speak out?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity and thank you for a very good presentation. I just want you to share with me your experience when you are conducting an evaluation, whether summative or what is your experience, especially when the evaluation is sponsored by the funder to evaluate maybe certain project in one country, and you submit the evaluation report to them? Has your experience indicated, or have you had any experience of now how do you transfer the evaluation findings back into the community or back into the organization to ensure the implementation and that reflective discussion and engagement by the communities or people who were affected or implementing the project?
Thank you very much for asking the very important question. In terms of utilization of evaluation results, the reporting is very much important. And when we talk about the reporting, we could assume two different types of the group. One is founder, like you said, like in case of JICA's project, we have to report the evaluation result to explain how this project was effective and meaningful and worth spending the national tax. And this report goes to maybe the recipient government or JICA or the government, the founder, if it's a case of non-ODA project. But at the same time, the evaluation report should go to the local community as well. So in case of ODA project, we are not mandated to send the evaluation report to the local community. Well, I personally always making that the report for the community. But when we, even if that report is supposed to go to only for the founder or government, when we design the evaluation survey or evaluation project itself, always think about which part of the information is useful for the local stakeholders. And in order to make the local social issues better, what kind of information they need. This kind of the data collection, I mean, the information collection should be conducted at the needs assessment and the theory assessment level. So that is why I think that needs evaluation, theory evaluation is very critically important. And then even if that report itself goes to the government or founder exclusively, still you can keep the necessary information for the community betterment. Then you can share those information with the community people. And this is maybe the part of the answer to your question. And then another part of the part of the answer is that I think this evaluation report can be the communication tool to bring the local voice to the founder or the government, central government. So sometimes the central government or founders do not really know the local reality and the local needs and what's really the local people want and the value of them. So that you can become an agency to bring the local voice to the central place. So I sometimes write the evaluation report from that perspective as well. Do I answer to your question?
You really did answer the question, because that's also my experience. However, when you look at some of our evaluators, they immediately as they finish off the evaluation, whatever form stage, they leave the project, and you find the community don't even know what exactly was communicated to the government, and the government, they put it nicely, bind it, put it nicely on the shelves, and it's never utilized until the next evaluation is done. So thank you very much for that. But and if people could take the way you have explained the importance of holding the project funder, whether it's central government, even OECD, to remain accountable, because accountability does not end only on their money, on their investment, but the impact with the community and how the community then view that impact, and what not to conduct a summative evaluation for exiting the project. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I think it's very important. That is very much the top, second and the third level of the accountability mountain. And we evaluators must realize that. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. And there are so many questions in the chat box. It's difficult to choose which one I should start. Let's see. Where is the first question? What is add value of what is the add value of evaluability assessment? Carlos Javier, if you are there, could you elaborate your question a little bit more?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, my question intended to try to ask when you do a formative evaluation, or maybe another kind of evaluation, usually most of the time the evaluators doesn't ask if the regarding the intervention there was a evaluability assessment. So in that case, when you do a formative evaluation, must you include the result of the evaluability assessment that was done maybe 1 year or 2 years, or maybe some time ago?
Yes.
That's my question.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. That's also the very important and relevant question nowadays. I think the variability assessment becoming more and more important these days because our social problem is going to be more complex and more difficult. And sometimes it's more, I mean, the social, particularly the social related, human service related policy is very different from like infrastructure building. And this type of complex social issue is often very difficult to evaluate and even difficult to define the evaluation indicator. When I say evaluation indicator, it's not always a quantitative information, but also including the qualitative information that can be the evaluation indicator. So that the evaluability assessment should be conducted at the needs assessment or the planning level, planning stage of the project. And I saw a lot of comments in the last Professor Ian's presentation mentioned the limitation of the budget. Yes, there is a limitation of the budget. So that is why we have to be very, careful to design the evaluation design itself. So that in order to, take the best advantage of the limited budget, evaluability assessment is very important. What kind of local resource can be used? That's also the part of, should be the part of the evaluability assessment. I mean, the local resource can be used for the evaluation activities. Yes, so then based on the evaluability assessment, we could make more efficient evaluation and a most realistic evaluation. And then at the end of the project in the evaluation report, maybe you could articulate what kind of evaluability assessment was conducted for this project and how that result was utilized for the evaluation design. And this kind of knowledge can be, shared with another project as well. So yeah, thank you for asking. And next question. Who can judge whether the evaluation results are useful or useless? Oh, I love this question. Thank you very much. Monica, can you would you like to explain a little bit about your question?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Aki. I just thinking about we have a large audience, right, to communicate the result of the evaluation results. So just ensure to which judgment or we can consider as our value or is our point of that evaluation result. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is very much fundamental question that all the evaluators have to think about seriously. I don't have a universal answer, but in my opinion, I think the beneficiaries of the policy must be the one who judge the usefulness of the evaluation. Because the public policy is for the certain target. And if the final beneficiaries, the target of the policy, didn't receive any benefit, didn't enjoy the result of the evaluation, and if that the result of the evaluation didn't contribute to them, to this target group, I think it's a meaningless. I mean, it's almost nonsense of that policy. Why that public policy is necessary for whom? So I think that judgment, I mean, the answer to your question is the beneficiaries and target group of this policy. But of course, there may be the different opinions. I wish if we could discuss about this topic for the next 1 hour, but yeah, this is my personal answer to your question. Thank you for asking this. And the next question. I see. Maybe the next question is similar to, I mean, what is the golden rule for identifying that an evaluation was useful? Maybe this is the similar answer to the last question. And also, if I was asked the golden rule, my answer is evaluation is social betterment. And what is your about co-creation of recommendation in the context usability of evaluation, but to keep boundary of not carried away as an evaluator? Okay, I think this boundary means, and as a professional evaluator, and maybe the personal standing point. Could you elaborate your question, Arden Chamin?
Yeah, sure. So now we are talking about using the evaluation result by the commissioner, also by the community that they were evaluated at in terms of the project, right? So nowadays, some UN organizations, they also promote co-creation as a standard, even in their TOR. And like in my own cases of some evaluation I did, it's also sometimes struggle, like not the struggle, challenge to be very strict on the findings we found it, and also, but of course we want to be reflective about their comments during the co-creation workshops. So I still feel a little bit in dilemma situation about this co-creation concept, but I would like to hear your opinion and as an experience at the how do you manage, and is it really in a better position to we do that for the betterment of social impact?
Okay, so you mean the dilemma between the founder and maybe the local stakeholders?
No, like maybe dilemma between the evaluator as ourselves and really, because sometimes we have to compromise because the founder, they think, oh, you should not do that recommendation or take that away, something like that.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Yes, ideally saying, what we are going to explain to the founder or government is consistent with what we really found from our evaluation activities, and that is including the voices from the local community. And if the evaluation design is created properly from the very beginning, planning level, I think that evaluation results is mostly consistent to government or founder or local communities or to ourselves. But sometimes, I mean, that the difficulty is for us evaluators sometimes cannot control the situation. And sometimes the KPI, for example, is assigned from the government or founder side. And that KPI sometimes inconsistent with the local necessity, local needs. So under this kind of situation, of course, the results of the evaluation study may cause some problem. And like as an evaluator, I often feel the dilemma. I totally understand what you mean. Because of that indicator is offered from the founder, And I knew this indicator does not measure the local value that Lily want, but I have to convince them to receive money by using this indicator. So that I feel like very much, oh my God, you know. So there is no 100% solution, but like if, under such case, for example, I usually set, I usually, of course, respect that their requirement from the founder of the government. But at the same time, I'm proposing the different indicator set or different design from the local side set. So it's kind of the mixture. And then I try to use both of them all together. And then when I wrote and explained the result of the evaluation report, I'm trying to bring the local voice as much as possible. And also I'm trying to explain why the central government or the founders want to have such kind of indicator or bring such kind of idea to this project to the local people as well. Sometimes local people are unnecessarily too much critical to the founder or to the government. So that through the evaluation activities, we could make their communication more productive in the end. I think that is another like side effect, I mean, positive side effect of the evaluation activity. I hope that makes some sense to you. Yeah,
thank you so much, Professor. And thank you so much, everyone, for participating so generously. This was a great session, a great Q&A also. So round of applause to everyone.